Pow, pow, pow. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world today. A lot of the things that I feel like we have lost along the way as a society are slowly starting to eat away at us. Life just doesn't feel the same way that it used to. The lives that our parents had, the lives that our grandparents had, almost the life that we were promised is no longer there anymore. And unfortunately, it feels like everything is slipping away, and that more and more people are starting to feel like there's really no point to any of this anymore, especially a lot of young men. A future that you can actually build for yourself and hold on to and control, some level of stability in life, feels like it's becoming more and more distant. And the past that our families had and that our parents and our grandparents grew up with is becoming more and more historical fiction rather than something real that we could have or attain. Even the idea of self-sufficiency is becoming even more and more out of reach. With housing prices skyrocketing, with interest rates blowing up, credit card debt getting out of control, and the cost of living flying through the roof. I don't know how many times I can say through the roof. The cost of living getting out of control. It's becoming ridiculous. So in a world where everything seems chaotic, a lot of people are probably looking for something like control, ownership, and feeling like at the end of the day you've actually done something and created something and made something yours. And that's why I think a game like Farming Simulator is so important. I think when most people hear a game like Farming Simulator, they think of boring stuff, because for some people, farming can be very boring. You're driving a tractor in straight lines, you're watching your crops grow, you're selling grain. Pretty boring sometimes, or at least it can be. And then at the end of it, you repeat all of it all over again. And it sounds incredibly dull, I'm sure, to some people who aren't interested in things like that. But to anybody who's actually spent any real time, any real quality time at least, in Farming Simulator, knows that it's not exactly what it feels like. What it feels like is that you're building something. That you start with a small patch of land, very little money, which $100,000 or euros, wherever you're from, it's not necessarily a small amount of money, but whenever you see how much the equipment costs, how much grain costs, how much your land cost is, even hiring people to work for you, work the land for you, it becomes very, very expensive, very, very quick, and you can run out of all of your money very, very quickly if you're not smart about the things that you're doing. Slowly, piece by piece, you grow the small holding that you start with into something way bigger. You learn how to improve on the things that you have already. You learn to optimize the land and the growth cycles that you have, learning how to fertilize, when to put lime down, when's the proper time to replow your fields. You even get to create new fields. And every time you start a new growth season or start a new crop that you're doing, everything feels earned. Like it's actual work that you put into it to make it grow, to make it possible at all. And that loop for a lot of people can be incredibly satisfying. Not just because it's flashy, and not just because it's fast, because it's definitely not fast, because it mirrors something that we're desperately missing in real life. The ability to put effort into something and then get something back. And this is where I feel like Farming Simulator really stands out, because it's not just another iteration of the same game. Sure, there's graphical overhauls that make everything look flashy and new, and the soil actually gets compressed when you drive over it, and the fog in the morning whenever you wake up and look out on your field and the sun rising over everything looks really cool. The lighting feels more natural, the environments feel more rich, which is something I never thought I'd ever say about a game. The world feels alive in a way that it hasn't felt like in other iterations. The ground physics are a big thing for me. Watching your cultivator or your plow actually open up the ground, and then when you get out of your tractor, you can look around and see the grooves inside where the soil has separated and the new soil is on top, and it makes these little mounds and cool little rows, and you know, like, okay, this is fresh, this is new. Have you ever dug your hands into like loose soil, and you like, especially like in the springtime when it's cool, you dig into the ground and you feel the cool soil on your hands? That's the feeling that you get whenever you plow a field, at least that I get whenever I plow a field. It's like, yes, I'm starting something new. I'm starting something fresh and new, and it feels good. Oh yeah, and then the way the machinery interacts with the terrain, the way that your tractor will leave ruts in the field, and it will bog down. If you're going over freshly plowed soil with your equipment, it's going to be a lot slower than whenever you're driving on hard, flat surface land, like something that hasn't been opened up and loosened up. All the compacted soil you can drive on, no problem whatsoever. All the loose soil you get bogged down in. Even if it rains, when it rains, your vehicle can get bogged down. You can see the ruts, and the ruts fill with water because, of course, there's water everywhere. It's raining, duh. The mechanical realism blows my mind sometimes, because it's like you look around the world, and the world itself, it has these flaws that you can see. There's things that it's like, well, you know, graphically, like the environment looks cool, but when you really get up close and start looking at things, it's like, okay, you know, this is like clearly just, it doesn't look real because it's a video game, you know. But then you look at the machinery of the vehicles, or the machinery and the vehicles rather. I was baling hay on one of my farms, and I was in the driver's seat looking at the field, you know, panning around, and I look back behind me. Actually, no, I didn't even look back behind me. I look in my mirror, because of course there's a mirror in a tractor and you can see what's behind you, which is another cool thing. But I look in the mirror and I see the machinery moving behind me. So I turn around, and sure enough, you can see all of the working parts compressing the hay or the straw in the back of the baler, and it's just like the fine detail of like the actual parts and components. I would be surprised if Giant Software gave you the ability to open the hood on your tractor, or open the side panels on your balers, or any of the equipment. If you looked inside and there was like every single part and component was all in there all at the same time, and it was all working together, that would not surprise me, but also blow my mind at the same time, because it's like they put so much effort and detail into like the small fine things that a lot of people, that matters to them. People that geek out over stuff like this. I'm geeking out right now, and I'm not that super big into farming equipment. I mean, like, I like stuff, but I couldn't name every tractor. Like John Deere, New Holland, Case, those are like the only brands I think I know. But it's stuff like that. The level of detail that they put into it is just mind-blowing. And it's that level of detail that I feel almost breaks there's barrier to entry, to where like you have to believe that the world that you're in actually exists, and you're supposed to develop this level of trust with the developer, with the game itself, saying, you know, I am putting the trust in you to say, like, to make this world believable and make it feel real and lived in. And then you look in the back of your tractor and you can see all the parts and components, and you look on the ground and you can see all the broken up soil, and everything feels real. It feels lived in. It feels like it's trying to convince you that, if only for a little while, that this world that you're in right now actually exists. And Farming Simulator 25 does that better than any previous entry before, in my opinion. And that's not because of the fantasy of the world being stronger, not in the sense of like Dungeons and Dragons and magic and which I think would be cool, though I think it'd be kind of pointless for a farming game, but could be cool. But the fantasy in a deeply human sense, like the fantasy of stewardship, what some people believe that we're even on this planet for in the first place. The fantasy of making something, creating something, or helping to maintain something and being responsible for it. Building something sustainable responsibly. The fantasy of that. What's even more fascinating to me is how much the community around Farming Simulator has grown throughout the years. There's things that I didn't even know existed. It's become almost like its own little ecosystem. There are entire creator communities built around it. There are people who make YouTube videos of like survival content, starting with nothing and then turning $0 into a multi-million-dollar farm. Like, massive farms. There's videos of people that I've seen that survive on an island. They have nothing. They start with like a chainsaw, and then they sell trees. And then they use all that land where they cut all the trees down to make new farms on that land, and then they grow crops from those farms, and then they use the money that they get from the crops to buy more equipment and buy a house, and they can completely transform an island that's just covered in trees into acres and acres and acres of farmable land. I don't know why I burped. Of farmable land. That's wild. There's long form progression content where people will start with what the base game gives them and try to take over the entire map, almost treating it like a capitalism simulator, like becoming the owner of all this massive valley or this massive river area where all the farms in that area are owned by them. They only farm one type of farm. This is a soybean farm. We only farm soybeans here. I'm personally one of the grains. I like the wheats and the barleys, things like that, because I like the way that they look when the wind is blowing by. I also like making hay and straw bales. That's also fun. There's hyper-realistic challenge runs. There's entire communities dedicated to trying, like you make a farm with only this one set of parameters, like can't get outside of that. There's competitive farming, which is something that I didn't think I'd ever say in my entire life. Competitive farming. There's a whole circuit of people who play Farming Simulator on a competitive level and compete in tournaments and make money off of playing Farming Simulator. I don't know why I stopped and said it like that. Playing Farming Simulator. That's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it makes sense. Because once people are invested into something and care about optimizing things and making things more efficient, even just mastering the whole idea of farming in a simulation, competition naturally forms around it. So why wouldn't there be competitive farming? Makes sense now that I'm saying it like that. Now, as much as I'm enjoying Farming Simulator 25, and though I think the maps are solid, like the river map, the map where you're in Asia, somewhere in Asia, my new favorite one was the one that I can't remember, some starts with an H. It just came out back in November, and that thing's massive. Like, all the maps are huge. They feel big. Like, bigger, I'm pretty sure they're bigger than any of the other maps that they've ever made. But they feel enormous. The field sizes feel enormous. But the fields that you start off with in the map that came out back in November, I'm just going to look it up. Kinleg. The map Kinleg. It's supposed to be a Scotland-inspired map. But the fields there are massive. Massive. Even your starting fields. You get, like, I think 3 starting fields. One of them's bare, one of them is full of barley, one of them's full of wheat, and one of them's full of grass. And the amount of the amount of liters of harvestable crop that I got from those was just like mind-blowing. Like, I remember back in Farming Simulator 22, your starting fields that you would get, you could maybe get like half a trailer full of grain, maybe 3/4 of a trailer full of grain off of your first harvest. But in this one, on these maps, you start with I believe a very similar sized trailer, and that thing takes like 3 or 4 trips from your combine harvester to your silo to empty it, because the thing fills up so fast because there's so many crops on those fields, and it is so satisfying. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass to drive back and forth all the time, but it's part of the game. But it's extremely satisfying, and I love it. Some things that I would really love to see, either in future iterations, which I don't think that there should be a new game anytime soon. 25 came out, and believe it or not, 25. Things that I would like to see more of, though, in the future. Oh, yeah, and then they added fishing. I guess I'll find somewhere to splice this in. On that map, they added fishing. Isn't that odd? I didn't think that I needed fishing in a Farming Simulator game, but I went fishing a couple of times by the river and caught some trout, and I was very happy. It's not a lot of money, just catching trout in the water, but hey, it gives you something else to do besides, if you don't like farming, if you want to fully automate your farm and let other people farm your farm for you, farm, you can go fishing, which is cool, man. It's getting very close to real life. But adding stuff like that within this game, adding stuff like fishing within this game, opens up a door of possibilities to being like more things being added to the game. Things that I'd really love to see in the future, and I know this may sound crazy, and I'm sure they're probably already working on it, but the addition of crop dusters in fields for applying fertilizers or applying pesticides or herbicides or whatever, which there's not really any pests in the game. Something else that they may add in the future. But yeah, like getting crop dusters, the more we go into the future, the more it seems like drone technology is going to be playing a factor into people's farming, like real life farming in the future. So maybe add drones and say like we can use a drone to spread, which whatever, maybe people don't like that. Maybe they like the grounded realism of farming and not the future that we're for sure going into. I'd like to see more unconventional forms of agriculture, things like raised garden beds where you can select, you have a small area, and let's say you wanted to make crops just for your home. If you had raised garden beds, or maybe you just want to sell crops at a farmer's market in the game, having like tomatoes and cucumbers and even some of the crops that are in the game, like onions. They added onions, spinach, really anything. Pumpkins, giants, pumpkins. Add pumpkins to the effing game, man. Flippin'. Add pumpkins to the flippin' game. Why can't you add pumpkins to the game about farming? Pumpkins in Farming Simulator, please. Greenhouses, which I know that there's already like small growing operations, but I'd really like to see some greenhouses where like you can do the individual boxes, not mass scale, like this building is for mushrooms only, this building is for rice sprouts. Like, I want to be able to grow multiple crops inside of my greenhouses. Flower boxes, I know it may sound silly, and there's a lot of mods out there for decorations, and if you're like, oh, you want flowers, I know, but there's something about, again, the stewardship of planting flowers, like putting out the seeds, putting in bulbs, watering them, watching them grow. I wouldn't say do something as silly as like, adding like trimming of plants and cutting off branches and stuff, but something like that would be cool, man. Just like small, there's some people that farm, but they compact farm, tiny house, tiny farm. Like we do that back where our home is. We did that. We had a garden in our backyard, and we made food and vegetables just for us. If we had extras, we would give them away to our neighbors, but most of the time, all the fruits and vegetables that we grew in our garden were just for us. You could even add like a survivability or, sustainability element to the house, and instead of a house just being somewhere where you live, you have to produce a certain amount of crops at your home, and maybe producing a certain amount of crops at your home on your little raised beds or in your greenhouse will bring down the maintenance cost for your farm. Something like that. You could add something like that. That's my idea. Yeah, I mean, that's my big point, though, is that, like, not everyone who plays this game, or even plays farming games in general, wants 5,000 acres of land and a multi-million-dollar fleet of farming equipment. Some people just want to have small, sustainable farms. Look at a game like Stardew Valley. Like, a lot of people really like that game for multiple reasons, but the farming element there is that it's small. It doesn't have to be massive. There's plenty of people that turn them into massive farms, but it doesn't have to be massive. So, just something to think about, something to chew on. Maybe you'll add it into future updates. Maybe don't wait for another game, but if you do, let's do Farming Simulator 30, not 27. Some people would disagree with me on that, but whatever. So this is the bigger message of what I'm trying to say. Why I really love this game, why I think every element of this game is so amazing and cool, is that games often show us what people are actually longing for. If a community gets built around something like Farming Simulator, for example, or even like the hunting games. There's hunting games out there, but whole communities get built around games like that, and I feel it's a reflection of what people are actually longing for. So if you have this massive community of people who are really into Farming Simulator, the odds are is that those people who are playing a game where you pretend to be a farmer on a computer or on their console, more than likely they really want to be a farmer out in the real world. They want to own something. They want to own their own land. They want to own their own house. They want to have a family to take care of. They want to have all this land that they grow their own food on, and then they can, all the extra food that they make, they can sell. People genuinely want that, and I think that's why a lot of people flock around this game. There's survival games out there for people who love who love going out into the outdoors. I'm saying survival like, well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know. Anyway, there's survival games out there. There's city builders out there for people who love construction management, or even there's a construction simulator game. People who love homesteading. There's games like Stardew Valley, like Valheim, though I don't think there's games out there for people. Oh, I've lost my train of thought. Oh, reflection. That's a game is a reflection of people's actual desires, what people actually want. Yes. So with the community, yeah, that's what it was. So with the community, like Farming Simulator 25s, you can see that there are people out there who want to own their own land. They want to take ownership and responsibility and steward something and turn something small into something big that's self-sustainable and that you can pass on for generations. There are people out there who want that, and they get that from a game. But, because there's always a but, something that we need to take into consideration is that a video game temporarily solves a real-world problem. It can't fix the game itself. Games in general, can't fix the housing market. They can't create economic opportunity, though some people would disagree with me, but they don't solve large-scale economic problems. It's important to remember that this is just a game. So how do we solve our real-world problems looking at a game like Farming Simulator 25? Well, let's say you have a brand new blank field. It's been plowed. All of the groundwork is done. You just need to know what to do to get to the crop that you want at the end. Well, how big is your field? What crop are you wanting to get out of it? And then once you get your crop out of it, what does that look like in the future? For example, let's say you want to create a sustainable life for you and your family. You want to be able to do something like farming in real life. So how do you make that possible? Well, keep yourself out of debt. Don't go into debt. This game will teach you that. Apply the skills that I've already learned. Maybe not in farming, but like any skill that you've already learned, apply it to real life things. Cultivate yourself, grow yourself, make something important that matters, that you can take from this tiny little thing and then grow it into something big. And I know that I'm speaking in hyperbole, but I think you understand the basics of what I'm saying. Like, if you want to be able to harvest your crop at the end and say, look at all this stuff that I did, look at all this life, that look, this big, beautiful field that's growing all the crops that I planted, look how big and beautiful that it is, and big and beautiful, big and beautiful. Look at how much success I have. You have to lay the groundwork from the beginning, and you have to work the field throughout the year, and you have to kill the weeds, and you have to pick up all the rocks. You have to do the work to make those things possible for yourself. And a lot of people, I think, are struggling right now with this whole it doesn't really matter anymore, because it seems like it shouldn't matter anymore, right? It seems like things suck. Back to housing prices going up. I'm feeling this personally, right? But things like housing costs going up, the cost of living going up, feeling like there's no escape, and the only escape that you can get is into worlds like these, into video games, but realizing that it's not solving. You escaping into these games isn't solving any problems. Any of us escaping into these games is not solving any problems. What we have to do is realize that the only way that things get better is if we work the field and make them better. We have to go out and make something and create something, and not rely on the efforts or lack of efforts thereof of people in the past to sustain our future. Because the only way that we're going to have a future is if we build it ourselves and make it possible for ourselves by ourselves, and not relying on anyone for handouts, not relying on anybody to solve the problem that they created because now it's our problem, and definitely not relying on anybody to be a scapegoat as to why the world is so bad the way that it is now, and that there's no point in fixing it because somebody else created the problem. Well, I don't think that's right. I personally don't think it's right. Like, it's easy. It's the easy thing to do. Farming Simulator is not easy. It can be easy if you cheat the whole time, because there's people out there that will cheat. But if you play the game the way that it's meant to be played, you can grow something and you feel the satisfaction of building something for yourself at the end. We should not accept a world where ideas like ownership of our own property, stewardship of our own land, being self-reliant, and building something real are just impossible fantasies. We shouldn't accept that. I'm going to start over. I'm just going to read the script. Let's see what happens. Reading the script. This game is an escape, but it shouldn't just be an escape. It should be a reminder of the things that it simulates. Ownership, stewardship, responsibility, self-reliance. These things shouldn't feel like impossible fantasies. We should not accept a world where these ideas exist only inside of digital spaces, because future generations deserve to build real lives and have a real agency, not just simulate them. Maybe that sounds a little heavy for a video game where you pretend to be a farmer, but if a game where planting soybeans and driving a tractor around helps people to reflect on what they want out of their own lives, then maybe it's doing something far more than people give it credit for. And honestly, that's why I think Farming Simulator matters so much. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me what you guys think. This is my first video I've ever made in my entire life. Well, not my entire life, but it's the first video I've ever made on YouTube. So I think you have to say the obligatory, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. Seriously though, comments are appreciated. I do like feedback. I'd like to know how things went, what I could do better, what I could do. Well, I guess I could do a lot of things actually worse, but I could do better. So feel free to comment below. Let me know. Like my video. Subscribe to my channel. Have a good one. Bye. Oh, sorry. I was just supposed to say it. I'm supposed to say catchy outro. Stay dangerous. Because I'm Buck Danger. I'm Buck Danger. Stay dangerous.